Hello everyone, and welcome to another Peaceful Solution Carriage Education Program, Moral Excellence in the Workplace. We are going to be picking up in Chapter 8, which is the last chapter of this book. And when we started last week, we noticed that the beginning chapters were really talking to everyone. They were talking to employees, to managers, to anyone, but this chapter really hits on supervisors, managers, those who are leading. And we covered last week how anyone is a leader, but for those who are in positions of leaders, whether we're team leaders or managers, those are our titles, we have a great responsibility. So I want to go on page 45 and just go over a little bit of what we went over last week. So if you see in this first paragraph, it's talking about, so if you are a CEO, if you are a supervisor, a manager or a boss, or aspiring to be in one of those roles. Now going down, it says managers are responsible for themselves first and foremost. And I really want to go over what that means. Managers are responsible for themselves first and foremost. Well, if we think about what we went over the first 7 chapters, all of that is what we are responsible for within ourselves. We're responsible to know how we're expected to behave, what choices we are expected to make in our personal lives and how that ripples out, but then taking this into our workplace, what is expected of us in our job? What are we to do? What is expected of us? And then it ripples out and it says that then others within the team, and finally the overall atmosphere of the work environment. So this is what we are responsible for, ourselves, then others, and then our overall work environment. So going down, it says that in addition to this being a role model, you are also responsible for helping your employees deal with and manage problems and concerns so that they can be productive in the role that they are hired to fill. Now notice that this is our responsibility, but before you can help someone else, you first have to know how to handle that yourself, which is why you don't just get a position. It's something that if you pay close attention, you are slowly being trained to do with every aspect. So I know as we go forward, it says, managers are observant. If you are aspiring to be a manager, you should be observant as well. How can I fix this? How can I do this? Because there might be a day that someone calls in sick and you are put over in charge. And if you pay attention, then you're aware of, this is how we do this. This is the proper way to do it. So I want to go over something that where I work, it's a furniture business. Now, furniture business, not many people know what we do, but you literally take apart pieces of furniture and you custom design them to how people like them, which can be a little bit difficult depending on what the person likes. And something that I want to go over is something that I had to learn because where I work is my parents' workplace, and I had been there my entire life, really. But when I started to work there and it became my job, my attitude had to stop changing. It wasn't somewhere I would go. It was something that was required of me. What I did, people were relying on me to do. So my attitude had to start changing. But something that I also had to learn was the proper terms. Because I had heard terms all the time, but as I got into the business, I had to personally learn what they are. Because my first job was to take apart the furniture. So I want to show you something that I had to first learn. And the first would be the difference between a sofa and a love seat. A sofa is a 3-seater, a love seat is a 2-seater. And then I had to learn the difference between a sectional group, a sleeper, what we call a hide-a-bed, a love seat, a traditional sofa. And if you're asking why this is important, is because if I was told to take apart a blue love seat, and I didn't know what a love seat was, do you think I would take apart the right one? No, but this is a part in, as managers, we educate people in what to do. Another thing I had to learn was the proper terms for the pieces on the furniture. I learned the difference between an in-arm and an out-arm is, what a cushion is, what an in-back is. And the thing is that now that I know the proper terms, when people who do not know the proper terms ask me questions, I'm just like, are you talking about the cushion on the back or the seat cushion? Because people just call them cushions. People just call it this and that. But I learned the proper terms. I was like, I see why it's important to know. Or as some people call batting. I was working on a project before and they're like, we're going to need batting. And I was like, what is batting? And we call it Dacron. So if you don't know the proper terms, it can be a little confusing. The reason I bring it up is, in order for me to do my job properly, the person over me had to explain all that to me. They had to take the time to explain, this is what you do. When you take apart a piece of furniture, you take out all the staples. Why? Because if you don't, the person after you is going to cut their hands. Now, this is in my work area, but think about your work areas. What are things that you will have to break down into simple steps? Maybe it's filing. Maybe it's who you're supposed to go to for certain areas. These are what we are to break down so the people under us can properly do their jobs without questions. But if they do have questions, we as the authority figures, let's be patient and willing to answer. To really lay out, okay, this goes here and that goes there, and this is what you do. Because we only got where we were because we took the time to, number one, listen to what we're being taught, but the people over us, our supervisors, took the time to explain to us. And there's something I want to point out. If you look at the back of the book, just as we go forward, look at the very back of the book. Closing of the book, literally the back of the book. It says, for many of us, we spend more time during the week in our environments, in our work environments, and with our coworkers than with our own families. The work community for many can become a home away from home. Interacting with positive character traits will make the difference between a productive and a satisfying day and one fought with frustration or feeling like you have not carried your load. Now we can turn back to page 145. As we keep that in mind, this is why the Peaceful Solution focuses on character. Character, what is your character? And if you go into the second to last paragraph, it says, the paragraph before we talked about what a successful manager is. But in the second part, it says, the great news is that with a little hard work and diligence, anyone can learn to develop a positive moral character. So if you go to page 14, notice that we've already covered this. And the things that are in the first 7 chapters are for us as managers to learn as well. So to develop a positive character, first consider why you want to obtain a certain positive character trait. Number 2, list all the ways achieving that positive character trait will improve your life. And 3, evaluate all the ways that achieving that positive trait will improve the lives of your coworkers, family, and friends. And if you also note that on page 15, it asks you questions. How is this going to improve your personal life? How is this going to improve your professional life? And that's something that we note back on page 145 is that as you start to make these things a part of you, it's going to affect your work, your life at work, but also outside of your work. And do you know why? Because the Peaceful Solution changes who you are. It changes who you are, your thought, your mindset, where this is not just who I am at work, it's who I am in my whole life because I've changed the way I've thought. I've changed the way that I'm acting. And so much so that it's become a habit, that I carefully think about what I say or what I do. Now, in this last part on page 145, it says, in this chapter, you will learn what it takes to become an effective manager and leader. You will learn how to best interact with employees, to motivate them to put forth genuine effort to follow the rules, complete all tasks, and get along with each other on a personal and professional level. And I underline that genuine effort because, there was an employer that told someone, the employee said, I work enough so you won't fire me. And the manager said, I pay you enough so I don't have to fire you. And if you think about it with those mindsets, if you're working just enough to do this, to prove a point that no matter what you do, I'm going to keep this job, okay, start thinking why you value this job, why you value what you have. To be honest, some people don't love the job that they have, but that's the only job that they can get at that time. Okay, we have to be real with ourselves. Some people don't like what they're doing. This is the only job they can have that can pay their bills. So with this mindset, how can we teach people to enjoy what they do? How can we teach people, even though this might not be what you like, we can make this a peaceful work environment? And this goes into everyone working together, getting along on a personal and professional level. There might be people who have been friends that are no longer friends. There might be people that are ex-husbands, ex-girlfriends, and they all work together. We want to show them that you can have your differences, yet you can still control the way you're thinking, feeling, and acting, and have a productive work environment. Okay, so just reviewing what we went over last week on page 146, we talked about that management is about leadership. Now, I encourage you, for those who maybe are aspiring to be managers, that you look at ways, just step back and think about ways that you have led. I did this after last class, and I'm not, I guess you would say, a manager, as Tana is. I am not a manager in that way. But I have looked at ways in way I have managed. I have been a project manager before. And let me tell you, that was a lot of work to be a project manager, because if others didn't do their job, it fell back on me to do that. I can remember one in particular where I had all these great ideas, and I was like, okay, I presented them in a meeting, and they said, who do you want you to help? And I picked a list of people that were available to be able to help. But there are times when some people got sick or they weren't able to do it, and it fell back on me because I had the deadlines. I'm the one that created ideas. I'm the ones that did this. Not saying that but as a manager, if those people don't do what they're supposed to do, who does it fall back on? And so as those who are aspiring to be managers, this should encourage you to do your job even more, because now you know how it will affect those over you. They can't just say, I'm done, let's go. No, they have to do it till the job is done, because if not, it's going to ripple out and affect other things. So in the second sentence, it says they range from helping us cope under stress. And I wanted to note that in a self-control book, page 37, it talks about tips to overcoming stress. And then as we go down to page 146, just going over some points that stuck out to me. In the second part, it's second to last sentence. It says, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how can you best use them in your organization? This is talking about getting to know what you do and why you do it, being knowledgeable. In the acceptance book, it tells us on page 11 that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Knowledge gives you the power if you use it in the best way, And going on to page 147, it says successful managers are observant. And the second teacher last week went over really great ways in how you can be observant. And I started thinking about what are ways that I have been observant before, or ways that I've gotten to know a lot of people. Because I've known various people, and one thing that I've learned from various people is some people like to express themselves. Others, not so much. Others like to say it's all fine when it's not all fine. And some people like to say, it is all fine. But they can be smiley and bubbly, and someone can just lay their heart all out to you. Everyone expresses themselves in a different way. And sometimes what we can do as people who are supervisors is always give feedback. Because I know there can be some who say, well, you should be able to do a job, and, I don't expect feedback, so why should I give it to other people? Well, why does it hurt to tell someone they did a great job? Why does it hurt to say, people might not see the completion. They might just do one of the steps to get a job complete. So I know some in my work area, they are a part of the sewing, and they do a lot of outdoor cushions, but I'm a part of the delivering. And so I know what they like to do is they always ask, how did the customer like their job? How did it turn out? So one thing I've tried to do is, because I know they don't see the completion and see the customer's face when they're so excited because I never thought their patio could look that way, I always come back and say the customer really liked their job. Because you know what that does? That makes them like, I'm actually doing my job properly. I'm actually, doing my best. I'm really striving, and now I can see. it. So as managers, even if people don't say anything, you can always ask. I've said before, one thing I struggled before a lot with was anxiety. I struggled a lot with anxiety. And it wasn't something that would be out. It was something that was really within. And I had to work really hard, to get through it. And sometimes that would affect my work. And I would have to, really get in my head and say, okay, what is causing you to behave this way? Why are you acting this way? And, as we go through this, many people don't know how to do that. They think, they're crazy. I have all these voices in my head. I have all these things in my life changing. okay, well, why at work? Let's just focus on this. If you need help, we can try to get you somewhere or someone to be able to talk these things out with you and make life a little bit easier. So as supervisors, when we're observant in those ways, we can try to get people help and in those ways as well and try to work things out. So going on to page 148. Page 148, it says successful managers are decisive. And in the Building More Excellence, page 20, it says that decisive means able to come to a decision, make up one's mind, and remain firm on the matter. So on page 48, it says, successful managers are willing to make decisions by using self-control, knowledge, and careful consideration. In fact, making tough decisions is one of the main reasons for the position of a manager and people you look to decide the best course of action. And I underline that because this also states why it's important when there's something going wrong or whenever people need help, why it's important to report to your supervisor, to the person over you, because they're to give you the best course of action. It says, during the course of the workday, there will be many situations that will require you to make decisions. Having self-control and discipline will help you to make the best decisions to support or correct others for the benefit of your work environment. Now, notice that having that self-control. And if you want to write next to it, lesson 2, we talked about how self-control is an essential ingredient to a successful work environment. Let's see, going on, it says, having knowledge of the situation and considering the benefits and consequences can even help you make the best decisions even when you're under pressure. So right here you can have a great discussion with what decisions have you had to make? And decisions you made in the past, who was controlling you? Were you controlling you or was your emotions controlling you? How did they play out? How did they affect other people? Now going on, it says, here are some other things to consider when making decisions. Making decisions. Number 1, if the decisions you make affect others, and they usually do, then consider if your decisions are fair to those involved. Does it consider their feelings and our needs, or does it cause hurt or harm in any way? Is it beneficial for the company's morale and growth? So right here we're using a lot of character traits, but one of the main ones is educated. You can't make a decisive decision without getting all the facts. And thinking about the workplace manual, I guess you could say was put in a managing position last week, and someone quickly said, I need this to be cleaned. And I was like, okay, simple task. Last time we used this, I cleaned it, so it should be fine. And then they said, no, I need everything out. And then when you're done, tell someone else. And I was like, do you know what a monumental task that is in a very short time to get all of this cleared out and everything cleaned? And the thing is that they didn't tell me personally that everything needed to get out. They told another person that was helping me. So inside I'm just like, I don't really want to contact the person that told us because they already told the other person, and they're busy at that moment. So we worked really hard to get everything cleaned out and everything where it's supposed to go. And then I realized that there was one thing that I didn't know where to go. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to be the brave person and call because I know this one is busy. This person is busy. So I called them and I said, does this come out too? Because so-and-so said everything comes out. And they said, yes. And I was like, I was so thankful at that moment because I knew that what I did was right. But in that whole 2 hours that I was working, I had to make a lot of decisions. Where does this go? Who does do this? I need boxes for this to put it this way. And then after it was all cleaned out and it went to someone else, we spent 2 hours organizing it, putting it where it went. Because I knew that later, if I did not take that time to organize, label everything, when we had to put everything back where it went, nobody would know. Nobody would know. It would have been a disaster. So even though there was a lot going on, I was thankful for those who helped me and took the time to organize it because, in these decisions where you have to be quick on your feet, you have to think about how it ripples out. How is it going to affect others? But also, how can we get through this situation, this project, and everyone stay calm? No one has to get upset. No one has to get yelled at. And the next part, it's next question, does your decisions follow the rules and guidelines of your organization? How can you expect others to follow the rules if you yourself show little regard for them? And that's something to really keep in mind. How are others going to value the rules if you find little value as well? Because that means you don't lead with them if you don't value the rules, which means that you're probably not being fair to all who are working. It says, do your decisions treat others the same way you would want to be treated? And do your decisions support the underlying goal or goals of your place of employment? So these are really important questions that we can use as evaluations for how we have behaved and how we're going to behave. So at the bottom, it says, to make the best decision in any situation, stop, think, and consider your options. Then proceed with the right choice. And the right choice is a moral choice. In the acceptance book on page 145, you can reference that. It says, make a right choice. Whenever you're faced with a choice, consider the consequences of your actions. Consider the goals that you have set for yourself, and then make a decision that will not bring harm to yourself, bring harm to others, jeopardize your positive goals, or risk your environment. And remember that the whole goal of this book, of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, is to live a life full of success. Now, everyone has their own definition of what success is, but our goal is to have peace in everything we do. And peace is possible. It doesn't seem like that at times, whether it's inner peace or outer peace, it doesn't seem like that can be possible at times, but it is achievable. Remember, we have the ability, we have the power with the knowledge we've been given, but what will we do with it? What will we do? Will we keep up with it? Will we keep striving even in difficult times? Will we keep learning new ways to maneuver no matter what changes? This is what building your positive character does. It causes you to think a lot. It causes you to figure out who you are within and what is influencing you. Because if you think back to the character book, those who are with us, all the way back in the character book, we went over chapters how to develop your positive character, and the rest of the book was talking about how to maintain it once you've developed it. Once you've created these habits, how can you maintain it? And in the page 79 of the character book, it says that your character has to be maintained minute by minute. With each choice, you're either building or tearing down your character. With each thought that you continue to ponder and allow to become a choice, you're either building or tearing down your character. So going over to page 149, it says, successful managers train their employees. Making sure that your employees are well trained, especially in character development, and that they receive ongoing training is an important aspect of management. So notice the overview of this chapter, we talked about how there is tons of character education programs that teach a lot of things. They teach everything except for the difference between character and personality. There is lots of workplace where they talk about training, where they talk about finances and everything that has to do with the workplace, but they don't talk about what the Peaceful Solution talks about, getting you to think, why do I do what I do? Why do my actions ripple out and affect others? Going on, it says, employees who are well-trained and competent in their line of work will be an asset to your company and to you as their superior. Provide in service to promote say this word, I always say it wrong, competency, hope I said it properly, and growth. Establish routines and patterns. Allow employees who have a special attitude in doing specific tasks to share their skills with other workers. Include rewards and incentives to motivate and encourage professional growth. Periodically review or inspect the work of your employees and ensure that they are fulfilling their obligations to the best of their ability. Encourage your employees to be committed by giving 100% in everything they do because others are depending on them. And notice that when you establish routines and patterns, which is something that you're training them to do, which means they're going to become a habit. And something to always keep in mind is that you never know when you're going to have to train someone to do what you're doing. I did not expect to have to train someone else to learn how to take apart furniture. I had to train someone to do that, so I got moved to a different area, which I was trained to do something that I remember when my manager, or I guess you could say authority figure, told me that I was going to be moving on to a new task, and I was like, oh, we can wait till the latest date to do that. Just because it was just kind of intimidating to me. Like, how do I say this? The area that I work, it ripples out. If I do not do what I'm supposed to do, like, no furniture can be built, because that means there would be no foam for the seats or anything. And also, things have to be done right. I do have to lean on, the people that, my managers and people that, have done this a little bit while, but I also had to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet. So that this was the job that I was given. And even though sometimes it was a little nerve-wracking, I took the time to listen to someone who was training me to do what I was doing. And from then, I was able to grow in certain areas. And so I always keep this in mind. If I do have to train someone else to do this, what are things that I would keep in mind? What are the basics that I would start off with? Because I know for me, I had to build my confidence in this area. I had to build my confidence that even though this wasn't my area of expertise, I could grow if I put effort into doing it. And this is what we really want to strive to encourage our employees to do, that you might not feel great at this area. You might feel like you can just exceed. But neither did I at first until I pushed myself to be able to do it. And this is our whole goal, to successfully be successful at everything we do. But this requires being patient, having self-control, and being a willing teacher and also a willing student at times. Because remember that whether, as I'm up here speaking to you, I'm also learning as well. Every time I speak to you, I'm telling myself everything that I should keep in mind, because it just goes both ways. So just like we can teach and train others, we also make sure that whatever we're engraving in someone else, we keep that in mind, because as managers, as supervisors, we are also role models. We're guides and support. Now that gives us a big job, but it also gives us the biggest reward when those we've trained do exactly as they're supposed to do. And with this, I'm going to turn over to the next teacher. So thank you very much for your attention.
Hello, everyone. Let's give Katura another hand. She did a great job. We're just going to continue. I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit and just do a little bit of reviewing here. On page 148. On page 148, under number 3, successful managers are decisive. I want to read that last part of that again. It says, having self-control and discipline will help you make the best decisions to support or correct others for the benefit of your work environment. Having knowledge of the situation and considering the benefits and consequences can help you make the best decisions even when under pressure. Now, you might want to keep in your mind, you never want to make impulsive decisions when you are under pressure. And that's when sometimes you can make some really big mistakes. You might even want to write that in the margin when you're teaching this to managers. Never, when you're under pressure, and managers sometimes are under great pressure, never make impulsive decisions when you're under pressure. Okay. And number 4, where it says successful managers train their employees. In this second sentence there, it says employees who are well trained and competent in their line of work will be an asset to your company. That means they're going to really benefit your company. That word competent, you might want to write in the margin, that means skilled to do something successfully. And as a manager, you would want to do your employees to do it successfully, not just do it, but to do it successfully, because that's going to make them an asset, a benefit to your company, okay? And to jump down there, it says, provide in services to promote competency and growth. Establish routines and patterns. Patterns and routines are really great. Allow employees who have special aptitude in doing a specific task to share their skills with other workers. Now, that special aptitude, that word aptitude means natural ability to do something well. So if you have an employee that just really shines, so that's a natural ability to do something well. If they really shine in a particular area, a great manager would take that person and allow them to train other people, because if they do it well, that means they like it, and that means they're going to train other people to do it well. Do you see how that could benefit the company? So we want to keep that in mind. Now, we're moving on. We're going to start here. Let's read that quote. It says, the only way to be sure employees know what they are doing is to train them. And we're going in number 5 there. It says, successful managers are personable and approachable. Okay. Now, why is that important? I want you to think about that. Mrs. Johnson, yes? Could I speak to you a moment? Come on. Make it quick. I was just wondering if I could get some time off. Time off! So, personable and approachable. Personable and approachable. Someone that you would actually feel like you would not be afraid to approach. A supervisor should not be have themselves way up here where you feel like they're just unattainable to be able to speak to, right? A successful manager talks with the people that they work with. They interact with the people that they work with. The people should not be afraid to come up and speak to them. That's important. That's important. That puts you as friends. Now, I know that we've got to always not cross that line. You never want to cross that line where you no longer look at that person as your authority figure, because they are the manager. But managers really need to keep themselves approachable. And why is that? Because if they feel like they can approach you and talk to you, they're going to tell you what's wrong, what's going on, possibly give you information about something very valuable that might be going on in the department that you work in or the company. But if they feel like they can't approach you, well, you're never going to get that opportunity to know, okay? So very, very important, and we're going to get into that now. Warm and friendly greeting should be what we give one another when we enter the workplace. In Texas, we like to say, howdy, how y'all doing today? So they readily initiate conversation with their employees. Now, it's funny because in the workplace, you're going to have a vast amount of personalities, okay? And there's certain people in the workplace. You've got some people that are chatty patties. I tend to be one that's very chatty. I'm a chatty person. And I get there in the morning with somebody who's already told me they're not really a morning person. So you got chatty patty and someone that's not really a morning person. Sometimes that can be a struggle. Chatty patty says, Shalom, how you doing? How you doing? Hello. How's it going? How's your weekend? Was everything okay? Howdy. And that person's just like sipping their coffee, chatty patty. Just stay away from me. Okay? So how's it going? At the end of the day, so long. Have a great weekend. So how was your weekend? What did you do? Sipping on the coffee. Chatty patty can be irritating, right? You got to learn to work together. You got to learn to work it out. The person that's sipping on the coffee, sip a little faster so you can get a little bit awake, so you might be able to talk it up a little bit with chatty patty, right? So you're not trying to say, so long. Okay, so they readily initiate conversation with their employees. A cordial smile, a hello, how you doing today? Says that you are open to comments and concerns. When managers are personable, employees are more inclined to share work-related issues and even personal issues that could affect productivity. A pleasant, personable personality puts you, the manager, in a better position to offer support and advice that could build greater communication and trust between you and your employees. You get a better bond, a rapport. You get a rapport with one another. And remember, it takes less energy to smile than to frown, right? So if somebody's frowning, you just pick them up and turn them upside down. Okay, so we're jumping on to the next page. And we are still in procedure 4. Remember last week we said it's a very long procedure. It's not a short procedure. And it's number 6, successful managers are active listeners. An active listener is one who listens conscientiously. That means you listen with your heart, okay? Hearing not only the words that are being said, but also the intent behind the words. The active listener allows others to find solutions to their problems and supports and encourages personal and professional growth. Notice the following scenario. Now, I want you to write in your margin, communication is more than just words. We have to look for what the words mean, okay? You've got lots of different personalities. You've got lots of different, I work with a lot of different cultures. We've got different cultural things. I had to learn how to say hi in, I think it was Swahili. I'm getting it all mixed up now, but you've got jambo. You can say jambo. You can say shalom. You can say hello. You can say howdy. And you have to learn how to communicate with all the different people that you work with. But when they're communicating with you, don't just listen for the mere words, but what do those words mean? What's behind the words? What's the facial expression? What's the body language? We have to remember that. Now we're going to look at a scenario here, and I'm going to read it. I want you to kind of, if you have had a similar kind of scenario in your own workplace, it might not be the exact same thing, but kind of try to think of anything that this could possibly fit that you've ever known. An employee comes to work and is uncharacteristically quiet and short-tempered. Now, the person's obviously not normally like this. The supervisor, sensing that something is wrong, calls the employee into his office. Now, remember, we went over about how the supervisor needs to be personable. The person would be more willing to come when the supervisor's asking them to come if they're personable. And they say, "You seem upset." So listen to how this is being said. "You seem upset." Now think about what could be said. "What's wrong with you?" No. They say, "You seem upset. Like I'm noticing something might be wrong. I'm taking that moment to care." So he says as he motions for the employee to have a seat, offer a seat. "I'm not upset," replied the employee in an aggravated tone of voice. "These people are just incompetent." Okay, something's really wrong here. "So you don't think that they're working up to their potential?" answered the supervisor. After thinking for a while, the employee responds, "Well, I guess they're doing okay. It's probably me." That's the confession time. Okay. Because, see, you get a little defensive when something's going on in your own life, a little bit aggravated, might be embarrassed that the boss noticed and had to call you into the office. They did it in a very caring way, but we get defensive and we throw it off on the other people, these incompetent people. So do you see how the manager handled that, though? They didn't say, "They're not the ones incompetent. I didn't call them into the office here. I called you." Right? It says, after thinking a while, the employee responded, "Well, I guess they're doing okay. It's probably me. I've had some other things on my mind." "It sounds like you're worried about a personal issue," said the supervisor. "I'm having some health issues, and I'm a little preoccupied." Okay? Maybe they're having some health issues. They had to go get tests run. They're waiting for the results. They're really anxious and they're worried. That might come across in their work area. But the supervisor took the time to notice, not condemn, but to call them in, to talk to them, and let them know that they noticed something. See? "I'm sorry to hear this. Please let me know if there's anything that I can do. Whenever you're feeling stressed, my door is always open if you need a listening ear, replied the supervisor in a kind tone of voice. Okay, so notice that the supervisor was not judgmental. They practiced those reflective listening skills that we learned about already, right? Active listening opens the door to respectful, caring communication. It allows others to speak about their concerns rather than take their frustrations and insecurities out on others. And it's vitally important. It's important that as a manager, that open door policy where they feel like they can come and talk to you, where they're not going to be ridiculed, made fun of, it's very, very, it's so important because especially when we're working, like I said, I work with many different, I've got one person that's from South Africa and, just different parts of the United States where I work as well. It's just, I feel like we just got shook up and thrown together. We're just all from different parts of life. But however you were raised, you might tend to not act. Okay, I'll just tell you. I'm going to just tell you about how my family was. Everything was, it was laughed off as a joke. So even when something serious would come up, the family would try to make light of it, and that was our way of coping, I guess. Well, you can't do that when you're a manager because people can take offense to it. And they could think that you're laughing at them when really that's your coping mechanism of how you handle stress. So you have to learn not to do that. You have to learn to take things very seriously and show that care and concern for people, especially when we're from different walks of life, because sometimes things are not funny from other parts. You can be from one, you can even say a particular word and it's offensive. Or you can do a gesture like, the thumbs up. If you do a thumbs up in some countries, that's like very offensive. Like it's a no-no. But here you're like, yeah, you're saying, yeah, it's okay. And they could be like, what? And you can offend them. So it's really important that not only do we have the active listening, but that we remember not to offend, to do our best not to ever offend. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to take place sometimes without knowing, because sometimes we don't even know that we've offended somebody. How many of you have ever had that where somebody tells you like later on in your life, maybe even 6 months later, you know what you did, it really upset me. I've had that occur, and I'm like, well, I thought we were joking around. I wasn't joking. And I'm like, you're standing there like 10 shades of red, feeling like you're going to melt like a puddle onto the floor. No one's got their hands raised up. Oh, okay. I'm glad there's at least one other person that's taken place with. So it says, it allows others to speak about their concerns rather than take their frustrations and insecurities out on others. So see, now this person in the scenario, instead of being grouchy with everybody like they were doing, they could be like, hey, I'm going to go chat it up with the supervisor. I'm going to go chat it up with the boss. Hey, how's it going? Whatever their greeting is in their country. So the following points can help you become an active listener. Number 1, use door openers. It seems like, or it sounds like, really? Tell me more. These few words tell the speaker that you're ready to listen. You don't want to be like, okay, did you have anything else? It's really important that when you do give them time, that you're giving them the time that they deserve. Number 2, reflect what the speaker is expressing. We don't want to parrot the speaker. That can be irritating, and I had somebody that was trying to, I think they were trying to do the exercise that they learned in class. They were repeating everything I said. So what you're saying is you want me to open the door? Yeah, can you go over there and can you count the cash register? So are you saying you would like for me to count the cash register? Yes. Do you mind taking the garbage out? So are you saying you'd like for me to take the garbage out? So you don't want to repeat word for word. You want to, because that could be irritating. When it says parrot, we don't want to parrot the speaker. Rather, we want to show an understanding of what the speaker's saying. For example, when an employee says, you never consider me for any promotions. Are you saying I never consider you for any promotions? You wouldn't want to say that. You would want to say something like, you seem frustrated that you've not been advanced in the company. You see the difference? because then they could think you're mocking them. Do you see the difference? So you got to really make sure you do that correctly. Notice this response did not seek to pacify the employee, but rather took into consideration that the employee was feeling frustrated. Based on the employee's words, what other emotions do you think she could be feeling? Discouraged, unappreciated, and helpless are all possible answers. Reflecting the speaker's emotions shows compassion and understanding. So you see, you're reflecting more their emotion of what they're saying, not the actual words. Okay? Next, do not be judgmental or sarcastic. There are times when an employee might feel as if he or she is not being treated fairly or with respect. And you can put in your margin for added Respect Unit Chapter 5 from the intermediate series that we covered. It's got some really nice things in there. We don't really have time to go into that tonight. She may feel devalued or worthless in the role that she was hired to fill. These feelings might cause the employee to speak out in a harsh or disrespectful way. Without the skills, and remember, those skills were on, let's go back to Procedure 4. In the lesson plan, we talked about those skills. It says, remember we talked about the skills and they gave the answers, and some of the answers that I had was organization, patience, compassion, planning, prioritizing. Listening actively is a skill that takes practice and commitment. It promotes communication and diffuses and resolves conflicts. We're going to get into a little bit about conflicts if we can get to that tonight. Now, without the skills of active listening, we can become defensive and respond in kind or dismiss their words as having no value. For example, the employee says, "Management is so unfair." And I've heard this a lot. Management is so unfair. Well, this is called a generalization. Remember we learned about that? Was that the acceptance unit, I think? Generalizations. So, management is so unfair. They never notice when I'm trying my best. If I make one mistake, I get written up. An example of a judgmental or sarcastic reply would be, "What do you want, a pat on the back? Do you want a cookie for doing the right thing?" You know, that would be a sarcastic or judgmental response. The goal of management in this company is not to celebrate every time you do your job. That might cut to the bone, right? How do you think this makes the employee feel? Would this employee feel comfortable going to management to voice her concerns? A judgmental reply does not convey understanding, nor does it encourage the speaker to speak. It kind of shuts them down. Rather, it creates conflicts and breaks down communication. Now, let's take a look at conflicts, because you see what it says there? It creates conflicts and breaks down communication. Now, in the self-control unit on page 99, I wanted to put that on the screen for you. It says, if you change the way you look at conflicts, you will be better able to handle them in a positive way. Conflicts aren't necessarily bad. Look at every conflict as a learning experience, an opportunity for you to test your self-control, communication skills, and build your positive character. So, if somebody answers you, even a manager or the management that we think is very unfair sometimes, if they answer you in a sarcastic or judgmental way, remember, challenge yourself. Don't look at it. Conflicts aren't always bad. You can take a look at that and you can say, how can I get through this and shine with my character? Can I do this? Is there a way that I can shine in this? Because remember, if somebody chooses to use words that would be judgmental and sarcastic, well, you could get sarcastic back, right? And remember, in the intermediate units that we covered, that's like fighting fire with more fire, right? But we want to be the water. We want to be the one that takes that fire and puts it out, right? So whether we're a management or whether we're an employee having a manager being sarcastic to us, because it goes both ways. I've seen workers be sarcastic to management, and I've seen management be sarcastic to workers. It just goes both ways. We have an opportunity to diffuse that conflict. And another one is the self-control unit on page 276. It says, you can be an ambassador of peace anytime there's a conflict. Never resort to violence, aggression, or war as an option. Continue to communicate until a peaceful solution can be reached. It's on you. And you can be the manager or you can be the worker. It doesn't matter. It's on you. And if it's on you, the manager and the worker, and everybody's trying to be the most peaceful person, what are you going to have in the workplace? Peace. Right? So that would be a great thing that you can compete with. I'm going to be in competition to be the most peaceful person in the workplace. I'm going to be in competition to make sure that I don't smart off, that I don't get sarcastic, that I don't do this, that I don't do that, and have the other people doing it too, and then it's just going to be like a perfect work environment. But wouldn't that be great, right? And the last one is the self-control unit, page 32. And under positive emotions on that page, I love this, because this is exact opposite of a conflict. It's the word peaceful. And it means free from hostility or conflict, freedom from hurtful or worrisome thoughts or emotions, the desire to always treat others as you would desire to be treated. Now, wouldn't that be great if we could all practice that all the time? But remember that little old E word that gets in the way? Emotions, right? It does, it gets in the way sometimes. As heavy as emotions are, we can lift them up and move them out of the way to make the right choice, though, right? Can't we? Whether we're the manager or whether we're the worker, right? Okay, great. Okay, so you can put in your margin the acceptance unit, chapter 3, for under what is healthy communication. That would be a really great one to brush yourself up on. And we're going to move on to that sentence underneath that paragraph where it says, what active listening response would you offer this employee to help resolve how she feels? So I want you to be thinking about that. That can be your homework, to kind of think about that. What advice would you give? What active listening response would you offer this employee to help resolve how she feels? Because, I mean, she has feelings. And feelings they're real. I mean, they exist. You can't just bury them. And then moving on, it says, active listening encourages communication. I want you to underline that. It encourages communication. When we can communicate in ways that are respectful, caring, and understanding, we are better able to keep small problems from escalating into issues that can negatively impact our work relationships and work environment as a whole. We develop and improve active listening skills only with practice. Okay, you know that term, practice makes perfect? It's true. Okay? There's not one thing that you can tell me that if you don't practice it, you're going to become better at it. Whether it's something positive or whether it's something negative, if you practice that thing, you will get better in that thing. If you want to practice being sarcastic and judgmental, you will be the most sarcastic and judgmental person on earth. but you're not going to get a lot accomplished and you're not going to have a lot of teamwork. You can practice peace, peaceful, free from hostility or conflict, and you will be a peaceful person, and you're going to have people that are going to want to work with you more readily, okay? Actively listening, actively listening may feel uncomfortable at first because we might be used to quickly responding. And this takes a lot of control for a supervisor, and I'm going to tell you why, because I can only tell you the truth up here. As a manager, when somebody comes to me in the workplace, I think that they automatically are coming to me to solve the problem. So they'll get a sentence out of a problem, and I'm already solving it. But they really didn't get to finish. And I'm already trying to solve their problem, but they didn't feel validated, because rather than listening to the whole problem and letting them get it all out, well, I already went into problem-solving mode. Hey, my office door's open, come on in. I'm the problem solver, come on in. That's not what they needed. They might have needed to just talk about it. And they might have actually had a solution that they wanted to offer. But look at me, I just took it away from them, took the opportunity for them to shine, right? Do you see that, managers? That's what we would want to teach, because you can take that opportunity to see, well, they have great ideas. They have a lot to bring to the table too. But, we can just, I'm telling on myself here. So, see, when you teach the peaceful solution, you're teaching yourself. But it's true. We think we're the ones that they came to us to solve the problem, so we don't sometimes let them show us that they have a solution as well, right? Do you see the point? Very important. Quickly responding and giving advice, even to the point of interrupting others when they speak, not giving our opinion, but rather allowing others to speak, to work out some of their own issues, is a powerful tool that can empower the speaker, de-escalate problems, and build trusting relationships. And isn't that what we want? Don't we want to be able to have a trusting relationship with the people we work with? So it does take a lot of self-control. It does. And so acceptance unit, chapter 3, don't interrupt. We could put that in our margin there. Now that little line there, it says listening is the key to understanding. Sometimes just sitting there listening is the best advice you can give. And believe me, you're not really giving any advice, you're just listening, but sometimes that's really all they need. Okay, so we're out of time, so we're going to start next week on procedure 5, because we've actually wrapped up finally the long procedure 4. So next week when we come back, we will start in procedure 5 after I'm sure we do a little review. I appreciate you coming out tonight, and it's cold out there, so make sure you bundle up before you go home. Thank you.